All right, guys, and we are live. My name is Val. Welcome to the Transmission Podcast, and this is my guest today, the one, the only, Mr. Donne Jovi, an actor, an artist, all-round hip hop legend.
Yo, legend
And
is a strong word, bro. I'm too young for that word, but I appreciate you, man.
well, soon to be a legend. How about we say
Nah,
that?
nah,
Yeah.
nah, not that soon.
Yeah, and last but not least, honestly, like a really, really amazing friend and brother here.
Nah, thank you so
Yeah.
much, man. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
You
Thank you
know what
so
I mean?
much for being the first guest on this podcast, guys.
Like I was gonna say, no.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the support. You've always supported me, man, and I hope that in the same way I'm supporting you, you know? I guess,
Without question.
the setup that we've been going through just now on, for my first episode here is just brought to my attention, sort of the ability of people to go out and do things even when they're afraid of doing it, that sort of perfectionism that comes about. I think everyone faces the challenge of perfectionism.
Absolutely.
So I think a great place to start this conversation would be, how have you overcome perfectionism, especially in artistry, because it is such a personal thing. You're really putting a piece of yourself out there. So how have you gotten to where you've gotten to? How have you overcome that tendency to just want to get every little thing right?
There's no such thing as perfectionism. And I feel like when I was a perfectionist, I was chasing something. You know, you can tick all the boxes for something, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be adequate, but it's not perfect. Do you understand? And not only that, but how I've been able to navigate through things is that I like to use calculated strategy and mix it with spontaneous serendipity. I like to create a world for both of those things. I feel like as a writer, as a creative, like you just have to, because a bad idea today is a hit song tomorrow, and you're never gonna know until you actually write it, and honestly speaking, you find that perfectionism stunts your growth. So it's like, I feel like greatness has to just be pursued, or whatever it looks like. You have to allow for it to exist in the way that it has presented itself to you, you know? Because think about it this way. You may write a book, you think it's garbage. I read it, and because I'm in a different discipline or whatever, I could be able to see what you're doing right with that thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because before clay was building huts, clay was dirt, you know? It was
Well
mud.
said.
Before clay was made to build, it was dirt. Where's the perfection in that? But then now look at what clay has contributed to sculpting, to architecture, how it's become an alternative for construction. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I don't believe in perfectionism. What I believe is in alignment with what it is you are trying to chase. And that is better than being a quote unquote perfectionist. Because even if you do achieve perfection, so to speak, or if you make the perfect album, you know, people are going to be wanting you to make the same album for the rest of your life. I mean, a lot of people say that's what happened with 50 Cent. Get Rich or Die Trying was the perfect album. And people were like, ever since then, 50's been trying to recreate that same album for a long time, which I think is unfair to say because 50 was just, he was busy with a lot of things. He capitalized on his fame and he capitalized on his story. But the drawback with that perfection was Get Rich or Die Trying became his whole identity, when he has a whole playlist of great songs that might have not been on Get Rich or Die Trying, but if you look at his catalog, he has some pretty solid tunes, but then everybody's always going to go back to get rich or die trying. And it's very easy for you to fall out of love with perfectionism. Even with your girl, you want the perfect girl, you want the perfect this. And then when life stops being perfect, you fall out of love with it, you know? And even when you do have the perfect girl, sometimes, you know, you cheat with somebody that's, you know, not necessarily as perfect as your girl, but she's thrilling, she's attractive because she's different.
Yeah, you're looking for that like different thrill that's just not being satisfied by the stability, I guess, of perfection.
Precisely, because it's like you get somebody, some people are not perfect, but they're impactful because they're unique. Perfection can be unremarkable, and that's a very underrated statement, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. It just doesn't have that edge. If you're looking to be perfect, doesn't have that edge, and it doesn't feel real, right? And I think that brings me to my next point. You know, you have immersed yourself not only just in hip hop and rap, but you've, you know, taken it to, I guess, the next level in this respect, that you've actually taken it to like a battle rap level. You are, you know, you're a very a competent and dare I say excellent freestyler.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
you are
Appreciate
very accomplished in what you do, and I have seen personally, you know, there are many hip hop artists, even on an international scale, that cannot freestyle, and even further cannot battle rap. You know, so how does that how does that factor your sort of like lack of addiction to perfectionism? How is that factoring into your battle raps? Because you cannot be addicted to perfectionism when you're in a battle rap situation. You know, how does your thought process work when you're preparing for that? And how do you overcome any mistakes that you might be making? Or actually, do you even see them as mistakes? Maybe.
Well, to be honest, rehearsal. And not just that, but, you know, to be a battle rapper, it takes a lot of factors because battle rap is in essence performance theater mixed with spoken word, mixed with you mixed with insults and debating. It's a whole lot of dimensions of things that get into it, you know, and it's very complex, you know what I mean? So if it's a complex art form, it takes a very complex process to not only master it, but to also achieve it. Because how do you find perfection in something complex? We can barely understand it. Sometimes battle rap, it's not even about who has the better verses or the better lyrics. Sometimes the other guy is just funnier than you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes the other guy will say the most simple things. Or worse, sometimes a guy knows something about you and people don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't know he's got the drop on you. And then no matter how good my verse is, you know, you bring up something and you tell the entire crowd about me. You know, then I'm humiliated and I'm ashamed, especially if it's an expose. So I'll be honest, like it's so for me when I prepare, I consider all of those factors. I consider because when I write like a person who's lost already, and I look at what are the things I could lose to. You know what I mean? So every time I prepare for a battle, I write like I'm redeeming myself. I don't write like it's the first time. I write like I'm redeeming myself. I already imagine you beating me, you know, in that regard. You know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, I mean, it's a whole different process to how it is when I make music. You know what I mean? But, like, for me, as far as battle rap is what you're asking, that's how I prepare. Because the truth is, you can never be prepared. You know, like, because battle rap is not about who between the two is the better rapper. It's just about who beats who. And the thing about battle rap, anybody can win.
Right.
And when you walk in with that mentality that anyone can win, you're gonna be your best. You're gonna come through with your material. You're prepared, but you're also prepared for the unpredictable.
That I find very interesting what you said. You already imagine yourself being beat. You, in a way, you're saying that you negatively you visualize the negative, or what maybe you interpret as the negative,
Yeah.
which I find very interesting because a lot of people in sort of the manifestation circles, when anyone's ever talking about visualization, normally they're talking about visualizing success. But I've heard very few people, and there are a few people who discuss it, but very few people talk about the negative visualization and the benefits that that can have on you. Can you speak a little bit more to that as part of your process?
That's a very good point that you pull out. You see, the thing about manifestation circles and their rhetoric on imagining positivity and stuff like that, sometimes it's a lot of grifter nomenclature. You know what I'm saying? There's no absolutes in what they say, just like there's no absolutes in battle rap, just like there's no absolutes in art, just like there's no absolutes in existence. So, you're well prepared. My process is like, I'm like a paranoid Y2K member, or like Cloverfield. Remember the film Cloverfield?
I haven't watched Cloverfield.
Oh, okay.
But
So basically, it's about this guy who predicted the world was ending. So he prepared a bunker, and with all food supplies, water, entertainment, and they lived underground. And people thought that this dude is scared, or he's just paranoid. Come to find out, when she escaped the bunker, when the main protagonist escaped the bunker, she saw all the aliens he was paranoid about. You see, a manifestation will tell you that you must be crazy for envisioning the bad before the good. But the truth is, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. You know, even when you're studying for a test, you're doing my process. You're looking for what you don't know. You're predicting the questions that may come that you may not be ready for. So you get ready for them before the exam. Whereas if you're just envisioning success, you're just envisioning yourself winning. That's the difference between studying from a textbook and studying from past exam papers. Do you understand? So my process is like studying from past exam papers, looking for frequently asked questions, looking for the algorithm that may not work in my favor, but I'm still going to predict this, predict that, and win. I'll be honest with you, and honestly, that's what's really helped me become undefeated. Because I've always predicted the angle that this guy's gonna go, that guy's gonna go, he's gonna say this, he's gonna say that. If he beats me, he does this, so I have to do this better than him. If he says this, I have to say this bar by this time because, there's the immediacy of the matter that we may or may not discuss. And it's also how I beat you to the punch, by that, anticipating. So as far as manifestation is concerned, you can't manifest victory. You can only imagine it. But victory only comes by one thing: preparation. So manifesting, you're not preparing yourself. You're just creating energy to draw something. You're just creating all the energy for a desired outcome. But that desired outcome will only come with action.
right. So manifestation is really just or the act of visualizing success and that the imaginary part of it is really you're just tapping into a field of probabilities there,
Mm.
so you're trying to really resonate with that field of probabilities, and the action is the basically the bricks and mortar to take that sort of formless imaginary scenario and bring it into real life.
I'm like a risk analyst. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You know, people who predict weather forecasts, they always imagine the rain or the sun, whether it's beneficial or not. They just know that, hey, look, by this amount of time, you better have planted these seeds or you better have this type of fertilizer. Same thing, you know. So, yeah, that's the school of thought that I operate from.
Okay, very very interesting. I guess I just want to also now dial it back just a little bit, going a bit further into the past. I just wanted to find out for you, what was that pivotal moment that led you to the realization that this is what I want to do? You know, did the battle rapping come first? Did the acting come first?
Hmm.
Was it sort of like an amalgamation? Did it all come to you at once? When did you say, okay, I want to be, this is the path that I want to go down? And
Okay.
especially in the face of, I'm sure there were many parental advisories
Of course there
against
was.
it.
You know, of course there was. You know, you come from a very conservative community. You're taught to think in a certain type of way. I also had the privilege of being a versatile artist because I started as an actor. It was crazy. Like, I just used to watch films and then go to school and act out the entire film during break. And people would watch me act it out and they'd be like, yo, this looks like it actually happened. You know, even when I used to write creative writing, I used to lie a lot, like in school. But my teacher was like, I can tell he's lying, but wow, what an imagination. So now we had carols and whatever, and we were forced to do an audition. And then when I came on, they were like, nah, since the third grade, I've been lead role for every single play I was in throughout my childhood. They always said, nah, we putting you in the front, we putting you in the front. So I was really an actor before. But like, when it came to rap, the same way I process things with acting and watching films was the same way I process things with rap. You know what I'm saying? And when it came to rap, I just memorized songs from Eminem, Jay-Z, and you know what I'm saying, and Will Smith, Mr. Cheeks, DMX, Nelly, Ja Rule. You know what I'm saying? Like, because those were the artists we used to see on TV all the time. You know, my favorite was Jay-Z till this day. You know, and I used to watch all of those artists and stuff like that. And then I see one kid about my age at the time, and he rapped his own lyrics. And I was like, I can do that. You know what I'm saying? And I tried it. I was horrible the first time, but something woke up in me. And for me, coming to this journey right now has been it's been reinvention of some sort, because when I started, then as I got older, I used to write more and I got better. I got better. I got better as I was, you know what I'm saying? And as I grew as an artist, people first knew me for my freestyle and my rap ability, and I was a battle rapper. But then in around 2010, 11, you know, people were like, okay, dude, we know you can battle and freestyle. You know, that's what I can do. You know what I'm saying? But like, no one's trying to hear your battles and your freestyles over the radio. We're trying to hear some music. So then I started songwriting, and I was horrible at first because it was a new discipline. And, but then 2011 came through. No, 2012 came through. And I was still a teenager at the time. I wrote a song called Ciroc and Rolla way back then. And believe it or not, that was the first song that ever got me 40,000 downloads. And that's when I'd actually proved that I'm not just a freestyler, I'm not just a battle rap, I'm an actual musician. Because that got me my first record deal. But I was in college, and I had to finish school first. So while I was finishing school, I was getting better at my music, you know, and I was still doing a lot of rap competitions, winning them, this, that. But you see the music in SA, that's really where I was a musician, because I remember in 2016, that is the first time I ever got my song used on a South African soap called Tempura Pushes. And when my song was used, that was the first time I ever got royalties, you know. So when I finished my first degree, I was like, and this is the same year I'm getting royalties on TV. I was like, look, I used to act, so let me get into acting as well, so that I can be a dude with a journalism degree, a dude with an acting degree, and I'm already deep in the music and the hip hop scene. So if I'm that, then I'm a well-connected, creative aficionado. So I learned how to act to a point that people thought that it was the best thing I could do. You know what I'm saying? When I graduated with distinctions in art school. I didn't do well in regular school. You know, I even failed my O levels, bro. But in art school, that's when I started getting distinctions. And that's when people started looking at, I mean, I was a rapper. They knew I was a rapper, but I started to get more respect as an actor. I even got signed. I was even supposed to before, and this was during COVID time now. I was supposed to get a call. I got a call back, but I was supposed to get a deal with Thespians Agency, the biggest acting agency in South Africa. So it gets to a point where people don't even know what I'm really good at for real. You know what I'm saying? Because they knew for a fact I was a great, you know what I'm saying? Actor, rapper. But when I moved to Zim, I was just trying to, the style of music is very different in Zim. You know what I'm saying? So I was used to the Joburg, you know what I'm saying, scene, and my style of songwriting, And a lot of people will tell you that your style of songwriting, your style of this, your style of that, you know what I'm saying, as dope as it may be, as good as it may be, there's this phrase that Southerners say, you don't sing as well in Dixie. So in my first 2-3 years in the Zim scene, uh, I was brought here because of COVID, those first 2 years, I was dropping a lot of records that the audience that was really feeling them was people from outside, not necessarily here. So when I said that, look, I need to make an impact with my music and switch up my style and my sound, I was like, okay, fine. But 3 years, I still got my first nomination in the first 2 years. Still doing shows with the comedians, running my own company, whatever, but 2024, and at this point in time, I hadn't battled in 6 years. At that point in time, I hadn't battled in 6 years. I saw a gap, in Zim, where the state of battle rap needed a different level of execution. And the fact that I was already a theater actor, and I was an accomplished theater actor as far as the academics are concerned, and a musician, I'm already a performer. Now, when I looked at battle rap and saw an angle that was uncharted territory, and that is taking Zim culture, Zim events, Zim language, everything in Zim, and just mixing it with the style of writing I've already mastered. This was something that people never heard before in the context of battle rap, you see. So for me, battle rap was never my whole identity, but rather an avenue I needed for dominance, because you have to, because I was gifted to be a good actor, good songwriter, and a good battler, you know what I mean? But you see, the thing is, what gained me notoriety, and what made me the creative powerhouse that people say, was the fact that I saw a gap in some uncharted territory, and I just ran with it. And that was the best thing I ever did for my career.
Right. So I'm seeing this story arc of all these various talents coming into play to really solidify you into the person you've become today, and being so dominant, especially in the battle rap scene. I'm not surprised that uh, you know acting is going to be playing a role in that,
Of
because
course.
it allows you uh, all these different facets are allowing you to emote on a different level to somebody who's maybe just studied rap.
Yeah,
You know,
because the reality is, like, y'all look at me as a battle rapper, but the reality is, I'm theater acting for you.
yeah,
I'm giving you guys a theater show. I'm giving you a theater show, a comedy show, and I'm a good lyricist. So if I'm doing that, broadcasting my lyrics, I knew for a fact that nobody in Zim is doing it like this. So I saw it as an avenue, and I was like, nah, don't put me against this little guy. No, 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 no. Put me against the big dogs. You know what I mean?
okay,
Because South Africa had a thriving battle rap culture. You know what I mean? And in South Africa, I won 12 battles, but I lost two. You know what I'm saying? I lost two. I had my losses. You know what I'm saying? And the honest truth is, I was humbled when I went to South Africa, because when I was coming up as a kid, like, battle rapping, I was battle rapping in my teenage years. Battle rap was the first art form I can say that I, mastered. But then I got into music and then got into acting. So when I got back into battle rap, those facets, my battle rap skills had developed because of the other arts that I'd mastered. And the fact that what I was bringing to, the Zim scene hadn't been executed the way I did before, that's what made me impactful.
I find that interesting. You said you didn't battle rap for 6 years.
Yeah.
I too have found myself sometimes when I put something on the back burner. There's this running narrative in, I think, society in general, that if you're not practicing this one thing the entire time, that there's no way of you getting better at it. But what I'm hearing from you, what you're saying is you put this specific thing, battle rap, on the back burner while you were studying other things, and those things while you were studying them actually ended up contributing to the battle rap that you hadn't done in 6 years, and ended up making you a better battle rapper than maybe if you had just specifically been concentrating on that one thing the entire time.
Yeah, that is true, but at the same time, it puts pressure on me as an artist, because I don't want to just be put in that box as I'm a battle rapper. No. And that's where I don't even see it as a play. I see it as me using all of my talents, to the best of their ability, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm like a hustler, you know. If what I'm making, as far as music is concerned, you know, still needs some touch-ups for it to be effective, I need to be relevant somehow, some way. So battle rap for me was an avenue. It was either, dog, be the best battle rapper while you're working on your music and your acting, or just be a great artist. You see, the problem with artists is they don't know what needs to work for the time that it needs to work. Case in point, the Black Eyed Peas. They made lo-fi, West Coast, conscious hip-hop. Traditional hip-hop in the traditional sense. But when they decided that, okay, Will.i.am was like, okay, look, I could go become the best rapper when we make the most conscious music ever, that'd be cool. But that's not what's working for me as an artist. I need to be able to bring a proof of concept and to show that I can stand out. So what did Will.i.am do? He's like, okay, electro, let me try electro, techno, and funk. Let's try doing that. And then lo and behold, where is the love? Don't funk with my heart, and all of those songs that, that I'm not the target market for personally. However, they took him to the stratosphere. Sometimes it's not even, I will tell you that, dude, I'm more than a battle rapper, but that's up to me to prove that. However, I've already got evidence to show I'm more of a battle rapper, but what am I the most appealing for at this point in time right now? Where's the notoriety gonna come through? So it was like, dude, you could battle rap and then get the shine that you want and then put yourself in a position where you can show the world because now you've got eyes on you, which they have on me now. Or I can continue being a great artist to no avail, So me being a battle rapper was not me trying to show you my greatness. It was me trying to be successful because there's a difference between greatness and successful. You know what I mean?
You bring up a very interesting point there. I think a lot of artists, as you said, they've got that one trick pony that they want to stick to. Maybe they get also very attached to a specific genre because they're like, this is my identity, this is my genre. And it actually can, as you've said before, stifle creativity. I was actually talking about this yesterday on a YouTube video where I was talking about how sometimes we rebel just for the sake of rebelling.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we're doing this thing just to spite society, but sometimes we cut off our own noses to spite our face, right? And I I hear you saying it's very important to find this middle ground as an artist where you can remain relevant, but you're still expressing yourself and doing what you want to do, right? And yeah, I think overcoming this challenge is especially difficult for the artistic people to do.
Not 100%, because you get people, like, for example, you get musicians. I'll use Kanye West as an example. Gold Digger was one of his biggest records ever.
Get the money.
There you go.
Everyone knows that track.
And you'll hear him in interviews telling you that he hates that song, But here's the thing. Your art has nothing to do with you. You as an artist, whether you like it or not, you're just as much a product and a person on the marketplace. Supply and demand. What do the consumers want? So for me, being me, the way I rap, my style, the whole East Coast thing, what I create, my acting, do you understand? If the Zimbabwean consumer sees that he is going to, or she is going to get from me, the version of me that they find the most appealing is when I'm battling. You gotta give the people what they want, because I'm already anticipating. I make a hit, or I make a bomb movie, which I know I will. You're gonna see when I make a hit or I make a classic film, people are gonna be like, we love it, we love it, we love it. So when you gonna battle again, that's gonna be it. Same thing happened to Justin Timberlake. I think Justin Timberlake is a decent actor. I think he's a decent actor. I think he's good. And he wanted to show himself as an actor. He wanted to prove himself as an actor and a dancer, because that's what he did. He was an actor and a dancer and a singer. But then there was this time when he was on this old Saturday Night Live episode, and Justin was sitting there, and he was being interviewed by one of the Lonely Island Boys, and he was like, Justin Timberlake, actor. And Justin's just like, Lonely Island Boy goes, we're gonna get some music, man. And then just walks out. You know what I mean? And he's just done. Like, you know what I mean? And artists, artists, we don't want to be put in a box. We don't want that to be our only identity, because, as much as people will say, you're the greatest battler, you're the greatest battler, a lot of artists in my position would own that and hold that and keep that. But then the truth is, there comes a time when it just becomes part of your identity. When it becomes all you are. When it becomes, this is all you do, and this is the box we're going to put you in. you know.
Yeah.
And then when that notoriety wears off, so do you. And then now you're just a street rapper, which, in a critical and artistry and in a creative sense, you're revered. But then to the general public, you know, you're just him who does this. But like, this was cool in 2024. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the real job of an artist is you got to find a way to be appealing to people. And there's a balance of selling your soul and being authentic. But then there's a balance of expression. But that's the life I chose, man. I can't be mad at it. This is the life I chose.
Yeah. Like I hear a real spiritual parallel when you're speaking about the art having nothing to do with you. And when you hear the word release, like someone released a track, right? It's like that track is no longer a part of you anymore. You've released it to the public. You've
Right.
put a part of yourself out there. But that part of you is now autonomous in its own right.
Right.
Yeah. So I find that interesting. It's like, okay, I'm letting go of a part of myself, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And you can't hate a part of yourself, I guess. You
Nah.
shouldn't hate a part of yourself, at least.
It just depends on what artists actually and how they view, themselves. An artist, some artists are very sensitive. Like there's another incredible artist. His name is X, Bush Baby X rated. And he's always saying stuff like, I'm not a podcaster. No, he's always saying something like, I'm an artist. I'm not a content creator. You know what I mean? And that line has been very blurred for a long time. You get artists who start podcasts and then they lose their credibility. You know what I'm saying? As creatives. And then now in this day and age, if you're an artist who's not content creating, you're stifling and you're limiting yourself.
Mm.
So essentially, we get attached to what we release. We get attached to our art forms. We get attached to the pieces of work. A lot of artists, they'll have that one drawing or that one painting which they've dedicated 5 years of their lives to and stuff like that. And once it goes out into the world, you get mad at the reception because of the reciprocation it's not getting. But it's like you said, once it's released, it's out for public consumption. It's out for people to celebrate it. It's out for people to ignore it. It's out for people to make it into satire, or it's out for people to immortalize it. But that's why it's released, because it's a shot in the dark. You're just hoping that you get received well, because that becomes your validation and that becomes your tangible for what it is you're making, whether it's good or bad. So a release is definitely that. I don't even feel like sometimes I call it a release. Some artists get so caught up in their art that I didn't release the song. It escaped me.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Release insinuates that I gave it permission to get out. Escape means that it got out of me.
It got out.
And
it escaped. It made it out.
Yeah, it made it out. The song. I didn't release the song. It escaped me.
It released itself.
You know what I mean? Or when somebody steals it and then puts it out for public consumption, you're leaking it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the word release has it's a very interesting relationship that we have with our art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's a perfect segue into the next topic I would love to cover is the mental health surrounding artists. Because I've noticed in general, when you look at artistry as a whole, whether it be visual art, whether it be film, whether it be music, there's so much, people are putting so much of themselves into these works because they can be very abstract things, I guess, and you're trying to solidify something abstract. So you spoke about getting attached to things. Do you think in a lot of ways the reason that artists get to a point where they have to, fall onto substance abuse to self-medicate or suffer some form of mental illness, you think it comes to, I guess, a lot of maybe the attachment to certain emotional states that they may be in, or feel that may be necessary to get into that creative headspace?
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's not really, it's attachment, but attachment is just one dimension. It's the whole thing of making yourself out there for public spectacle. Because remember, you're an artist, so you yourself are a product. So it's the dehumanizing aspect of it as well, that you're no longer just an artist. When an artist has a problem with another artist, the crowd, the people, they're allowed to say what they want. Or if you have your disdain for this person, you're allowed to say anything that you want. And when people say, stop being so cruel, he's also a human being, their answers, nobody told them to be an artist. It's a dehumanizing experience. It's a demanding experience. It's a demand for greatness. It's a demand for wanting more. It's toxic fan culture. It's your personal culture. You even feel like you're not even a human being anymore. Just trying to be great for everybody else. Because you want it to be you. That stays relevant in people's minds. And when you have 1 million people who are trying to be like you, and when the people around you are telling you otherwise, and so much, I'll be honest with you, with artists, if I could have been like any other artist, if I was to be an artist again, I'd be like Daft Punk. I just make music, nobody knows my face, or Gorillaz. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Make music, nobody knows my face. I wouldn't need to go out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just see cartoons, but I could just be a regular guy, just chilling, who just makes music. And nobody even knows my face, but you love my songs. Wouldn't that be nice? But then you've got things that need to bring home the bacon. You gotta go on tour. No one's gonna try to pay to watch cartoons on TV. They wanna see you perform live, and it's just demanding because, being as a rapper or even just as an artist in general, if it was a sport, I'd say that it's like swimming. Because swimming is the one sport where you use your entire body in a race. When you're running, you're leg dependent. When you're playing with the ball, it's more mental and coordination dependent. But when you're swimming, it's coordination, it's mental, it's running, it's you using your arms and maneuvering yourself in an entirely different dimension where you are immersed with an element outside of your own. That is what being an artist is like. So imagine you're swimming. What are you doing? You're gasping up for air. What does gasping up for air look like for an artist? Substances. Because you can't breathe. You need goggles, right? To help the water not get into your eyes, right? Those substances, again, those are your goggles too. They're your Speedo hat. They're you stepping out to breathe, stepping out to do this, stepping out to do that. Because no matter when you're swimming pretty fast, you're getting water in your ears. Same way we're internalizing negativity that we listen to. It's water in our ears, So that is exactly what it is. You're immersing yourself into the external world while trying to process the external world and then redigest it and then produce something back to it.
Whilst all eyes are on you. Yeah.
Now that's pressure.
That is pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you summed it up perfectly, especially with that metaphor when it comes to swimming. It's like you're in this alien element, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like you are in that. It's like you're trying to,
Suffocated.
yeah, you're trying to thrive in this, in the situation that would normally be where you survive, right?
And swimming is an act of survival that we turned into a sport. So,
So maybe self-expression is the same.
exactly. Because, because the truth is, artists, especially good artists or good expressionists, or even just geniuses in general, because I hate that whole, I hate it when artists think that because you are creative, that makes you somewhat a superpower or special. You are just like a plumber. You are just like a carpenter. You are just like any other soul. You just have a complex way of doing things, and you just need to get that job done. What kind of creative, how impactful you are, well, that just depends on what the audience says.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're surrendering yourself to an element that's against you.
Right. Yeah. And so, how do you feel? This plays into, I guess, where um, into Zim artistry
Right,
as to where it is right now. How do
right.
you think Zim artistry is maybe being held back by a lot of this um, survival rhetoric? Okay, so how do we move artists, I guess, out of this survival mode which they're in, and into a place where they can thrive despite being in, where they can turn it into an actual sport rather than a session in drowning.
Yeah, this is a frequently asked questions at these art seminars. You know, I have to be honest with you. You're doing an amazing job right now with your podcast.
Thank you, dude.
But I have to be real with you, my brother. That question annoys the hell out of me. What must we do? How can we put us forward? I'll tell you what we must do. We need to, before we can fix the art, okay, because not just fix ourselves. Let's talk about, you know what I'm saying? And we're not gonna get into the real problem because we know what the real problem is. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to go into detail. I am not a, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll tell you like this. I'll tell you like this. You see, what we have to fix is we got to fix the factory before we can fix the output of the factory. If the machines are outdated, we need to get new machines. You know, if the work personnel are too old, we need to hire new employees. If the working conditions are too messy or unhealthy, we need to get some cleaning. You know what I mean? You see, the truth is, it's the mismanagement of this nation as a whole and corruption thriving as a whole. That is why when one thing suffers, it's a ripple effect. And the state of the industry is just a byproduct of that, you know? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, what should we do? Because the honest truth is, most of us are doing the best we can, okay? I'm not about to tell people, no, we need to do more of this. No, people are supporting the arts more than they could. Do you understand? More than they have been before. 10 years ago when I was still a teenager, bro, like, Zim was a wasteland, bro. Never wanted to come back here. Not being a creative. You go somewhere like South Africa, you see Oscar winners, Grammy winners, the best artists in the world are just, there, they love us as creatives. But then here, it's only now I can say, it's only these days I can say that. You see, these days. And why is that? It's because of the influence of watching the world celebrate Nigeria. It's the world celebrating South Africa. We have to want that for ourselves too, and we do. We really do. Fans and artists alike really do. What we need as an artist, as an art industry, we need to do the crippling task of using our situation and our condition and trying to create something that creates a worldly impact. But I can tell you right now, we're already in the process of it. There's more infrastructure now. There's more opportunities now. Every single week is a new show. Do you know how many gigs happen? Do you know how many times I performed, in the last 3-4 years since COVID? I've performed 40 times, bro. That's crazy. But you see what I'm saying? While being an English artist. Like, what? I was only performing like that in SA. That was because I was also performing in art school and I was also doing the club scenes as well. You know what I'm saying? I performed 40 times in SA ever since I started art school. And a few more times before that, but I don't count before art school. I don't count my performances before art school. Even though they're relevant, I don't count. I only started counting after art school because that's when I was really intentional about becoming a better performer. You know what I mean? So now you do the math. I've done 80 shows, bro. Those are tour numbers. And that's out of my own effort, out of my own, out of the, sorry for going Pirates of the Caribbean, from the sweat of my brow and the strength in my back. You understand? Like, yeah, I am the Black Barbosa. So I have to quote Captain Barbosa. So that's exactly what it is. And to say that, like, what we need to do is no. What we need to do is keep cooking, keep creating, and keep moving, and keep pushing. And for the fans, please watching. Especially me.
So, yeah, what you say, I guess, is keep on keeping on, right?
Precisely.
Let the artists keep making art. Let the fans keep supporting. And eventually the work will be done basically on its own.
And the things will change.
So like a collective manifestation in that regard. Hey?
It's actually quite insulting to be like, what must we do? Like, what isn't being done, guys? Like, what hasn't been done? People will still come out of their mouths and be like, Zim Hip Hop Awards, it doesn't mean anything, but it's something. Because they were rappers in Zimbabwe in the year 2000 when we were still in primary school. Do you understand? There were rappers in the 2000s. And those rappers didn't have awards, didn't have anything. They were performing at local bars and freestyling for rap nerds and outcasts in society, and they never got their day. And then fast forward to the 2010s, now there's an institution, the Hip Hop Awards, where people keep saying, it's corrupt, it's this, that, and the third, and they have all their reservations, but the fact is, it's there. Do you understand? And now, those awards are even bigger because the artists that get those awards, now we've got Americans flying through. I was working with legend from Day One Productions, thanks to Next Level. I'm in contact. I'm a personal friend of D1 from the United States, who has been on BET. That wasn't happening in the 2010s or the 2000s. So to say, what must we do about it? What isn't being done? That's an insult to Plot Marco. That's an insult to Beefy Adrian Harrison, Noble Styles, all these commissioners and creators who were commissioners and creators and who began as consumers alike. There's so much that's already being done. And then we go to the alt scene, which is now a growing scene. We actually have Zim fashion. Believe that? There was never a fashion scene 10 years ago, bro. I'm just glad I'm still young watching all of this actually, manifest. So the fact is, we just need to keep on keeping on because there's already things happening. Even people working, I'll tell you right now, give it 2, 3, 5 years max. You're going to start seeing more full-time creatives. You're going to start seeing more full-time artists. If we keep going at the rate that we're going, we're going to stop doing that. What needs to stop, though, is the negative thought. It's the repetitive questions. It's the surrender to the system, because whether we like it or not, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there has to be somebody who's willing to even give their lives and sacrifice more than anyone ever has. And it has to be a collective sacrifice, because the people that were rapping when hip hop was the equivalent to a desert, hip hop in the 90s was a desert wasteland. It was a desert area. Then it became a wasteland, like Slab City in the United States. Then it became a wasteland. Yeah, I mean that was hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like honestly speaking, it was Slab. You know, it went from a desert wasteland in the 90s. You know, to no man's land, and that was when what you call this piece of ebony and Do Me Right and all of those the pioneers were rocking when it was a desert wasteland. And then in the 2000s, it became like Slab City. You know, now there were more people, there were more this, there were more that, but it was still a very, very niche and underappreciated genre. You know, that's when it was Slab City. Now, and then now in the 2010s, you know, it became like a wasteland with a redeemable wasteland. Let's call it that.
Wasteland
like,
Plus.
Exactly. Mad Max Fury Road. You know what I'm saying?
Fallout.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. You know, that's exactly what it is. And now I can tell you the state of hip hop is a small nation about to be born. We're the most relevant now, dude. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Hip hop is the biggest genre in Zim now. Last year, for the last 2 years, ever since 2023, the majority of the shows that you look up on the Gig Guide and Zim, it's been hip hop shows.
It's wonderful.
It's just been hip hop shows. That's why I say that now we're a civilization that's being built, you know? And in the 2020s, we're going to be an empire on the rise. At the end of the 2020s, if we keep going the way we're going, it's going to be an empire that's on the rise. You know what I mean? So,
no, this is wonderful news. I'm glad to hear, an artist such as yourself speak in such a positive light about the Zim scene. And just I guess a warning to all future interviewers out there: do not ask Zim hip hop Zim artists in general what needs to be done to take Zim international.
Please don't.
There are already positive things happening in the Zim scene as it is. I guess with all of the innovations happening in the Zim artistry, as you said, Zim fashion has been born. I love, especially what Uleni and the boys are doing with the fabric party.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to those guys. And they're not just bringing together fashion, but they're bringing in together all different kinds of art. So it's becoming more like an art festival than just a fashion festival.
Right.
So I guess my next question for you is, when you are looking to collaborate with somebody, what are you looking for in the perfect collaborator?
I don't even like that term, the perfect collaborator. If I like you enough, I'm going to rap one. You know what I mean? Like collaborations, I like collaborations because for me, collaborations gives me a chance to experiment. I'm not really picky about my collabs. I really just have to like you, you know? I don't care about your level of rap. I don't care if you do this. I mean, of course, I'm going to adapt myself to a certain way or a certain time. But you see, the thing is, I love collabs, but I get in my own way when it comes to collabs. I'll be honest with you. It's really a me thing because I can work with anybody, man. I love working with everybody, dude. You know what I'm saying? But my problem is, I don't know, dude. I can be spontaneous, but sometimes I'll be calculated. But sometimes, like I have a wandering mind. So I pretty much live immersed in my work and immersed in my to-do list and stuff like that. And yeah, man.
Can forget to be a human sometimes.
Man, I'm just a weirdo, bro. I like that. I'm not meant to make sense to everybody or anybody for that matter, but I'm okay with that.
I guess at some points I think everybody needs to be okay with not even making sense to themselves.
Hey, man, you better watch out with that. Stop making sense to yourself, bro. You're gonna lose all your self-awareness. You're gonna lose your, you know what I'm saying? You don't want that. Like, you don't want to go wayward, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Where, cause that's also another thing with this art. Like, there comes a lot of mental masturbation, a lot of rumination of thoughts where you stop making sense to yourself, where you stop making excuses to yourself. This is why you need a balance of the external and the internal environment. You know what I'm saying? Because we love to romanticize sitting in our rooms the entire day while we create ourselves and mold ourselves into the greatest creatives of all time. And then you stay in the loop and in the cycle where you don't even make sense to yourself. We watched it happen to so many great artists to a point that you lose touch with people, because what makes you impactful as an artist is how much touch you have with people. And if you lose touch with the world, you go off the grid. You're going to wind up like Howard Hughes in The Aviator. You know what I'm saying? When he started reciting the same thing, the milk goes in the bottle. I drink the milk. You know what I'm saying? And then you stop being productive, and it's just like, dude, what the hell's going on? So you gotta watch that, man. You gotta watch that,
I
man.
guess getting that, getting into your own space so that you can get into your creative process, but then also still pinging off society and the environment to see like, am I hitting that middle ground and not just going off into the deep end, right?
I've had one of the greatest artists I ever knew personally, and he's one of the saddest stories I could ever tell personally. Lived in my neighborhood. I grew up with him. He's what I'm talking about. Out of respect for him, I'm not gonna say his name. In fact, nah. I'm just gonna say it because if nobody's gonna tell his story, I am. There was this guy. Probably, if there was ever a mind I ever envied, it was his in this lifetime. His name was Timber Simba. Incredible skateboarder. I'll be honest, dude. He was one of those black dudes that loved white dudes. You know what I'm saying? Not that he was gay or anything, but he was a real coconut, but he was a real eccentric. I'm a bit of a personality disorder, yeah, but most geniuses are. This dude taught me how to draw. He taught me how to rap. You see, he was the benchmark for me. He was the reason. He validated me as an artist. When I look at any artist, I look to him. And throughout my childhood, until I was 16, he was untouchable. He could draw, man. He could draw anime. He was skateboarding. He was doing karate. Everything he used to do, I used to do too. I used to follow him. I used to emulate him. Then I started out rapping him. And even he couldn't believe it. But still, when he got focused, whoop! Hey, he's coming back. You know what I'm saying? But somewhere along the line, he got in his own way. A lot of the times. Matter of fact, his whole life. Never put out an album. Never released a drawing catalog. Never released any piece to show his brilliance. But those who grew up around him knew that this guy was incredible. But you see, he was so in his head. And there was also a lot of negativity at home. He comes from a broken home like I do. You know what I'm saying? There was so much negativity in his head, that he ruminated and lived in the loop and lived in the loop until those people around him started to surpass him. And he couldn't even take it because he knew he was more brilliant, but he was just in his own way. He was a cautionary tale. How the wrong thought process and the wrong attitude will take even the greatest man with the greatest brilliance and bring him down to size. And he had the worst mentality and the worst thought patterns I could have ever seen and asked of anyone. But if there's ever a genius that the world missed out on, if there was ever a genius that Zimbabwe could have been proud of, it was that guy. And I'll tell you right now, he made me everything I am, both in the positive and in the negative way. I just hate that I learned so much more from his negative attributes than I did for his positives. Because his positives, I don't think I'd ever be who I am if it wasn't for him. And I really hate that this is what life and the world will never remember him. But at least this interview will be living proof that, hey, and I'm going to tell his story too. I'm going to make a film about him. I'm going to tell his story too, because he's a heartbreaking story. And I hate that he has to be reduced to his protege's art, because he himself, that guy, oh my Lord, that guy, that was the man. Rest in peace, 10 December.
Right. So him getting in his own way and getting in his head, eventually, I'm assuming, claimed his life.
Listen, man, I don't even know how he died, bro. He didn't even have a funeral, bro. Wow. That was a sad story. He actually said that if anything happens to him, his mother is the reason for his death. Do you understand? They had an awful relationship. And the worst part about it is with him, well, what I do know about him is, I don't know specifically, but I will say that there was a lot of dark spirituality he used to dabble in. There was a lot of dark spirituality he used to, you know what I mean? Like, he used to just say a lot of weird things, like he prayed for a snake to attack his mom and all that type of shit. Like I used to just wonder, like, bruh, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, it got to a point where nobody wanted to hang with him. And he didn't want to hang with anyone. It started with him alienating himself from people. And then he alienated himself from so many people, because remember, he was older than me. So when he alienated himself from people, he started hanging out with younger guys, because people in his generation, you know what I mean? Everybody just had complaints about him. You know what I'm saying? But you see, for me, I still looked up to him. I'm like, nah, man, you just misunderstood like me. And he was. But my Lord, he went from bad to worse, to a point that you didn't even know what he was doing. There was a time when he moved out of Mandara and he moved to airport, and he tried to convince all of us that that was the move to make. He was out here telling people, hey, bruh, I'm going to make some more millions in airport. I'm like, okay. And he came back after he went to airport. I remember I didn't see him for a year. And then I came back after a year. You know, I was doing my visits from college, and this dude was mad skinny. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on with you? And he was like, nah, I tried to be a street hustler. It didn't work. I tried to be this. It didn't work. And I'm like, dude, you are way too brilliant to be seeing that this was not the smartest thing to do, bro. Like, how are you so intelligent, yet so, like, is pragmatic a word? I don't know, but whatever pragmatic was, he was the opposite of that. And he just stayed in his head for a long time while the rest of us were moving on, going to college. I remember my last conversation with him. And bear in mind, I won't lie to you, he used to mistreat everyone. He used to mistreat everyone. I couldn't tell if he was a narcissist or an avoidant or a winning combination of both. I wouldn't even know. But like, I remember the last day we had a conversation. He had such a negative aura about him. I lectured him. My last conversation with him was me lecturing him. And the last thing I told you, and I said a lot, and I criticized a lot of what he did. But I ended my criticism, and I'm not saying this as a person who doesn't like you. I'm saying this as a person who used to look up to you, you know? And I see myself getting that same karma in my life. I've seen myself and I've really looked into myself and what's wrong with me because, it's not about mindfulness, but what are you mindful of? Because no matter how brilliant you can be in a repetitive loop of self-destruction or even passivity. Who knows? But after he got to a certain age, which was pretty young, he died at 28, man. He died in 2017. You know what I mean? And at 28 years old. That was the coldest lesson I could learn from him.
Right, yeah, I think sometimes the negativity can really take over, and unfortunately, it starts becoming its almost own autonomous identity, almost like, as you said, dark spirituality is almost like an autonomous demon, maybe surrounding this person, an aura of negativity. I guess that moves me into my next question, uh, of how do you um, construct your own thought processes? How do you stave off the insanity of being an artist and a creative? How do you cope with that on a personal level?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. Yeah, I will tell you where I'm at with my process, though. Recently, I've acknowledged that I've lived way too comfortable with burnout. Zimbabwean parents, they put you through an immense amount of pressure growing up, And that's why, the millennials and the Gen Zs, we're quite a disenfranchised nation. I mean, we're a very enlightened and globally connected nation, but we are still a very disenfranchised nation. You know why I say that? It's because, especially North Samoa kids, we were brought up with the promise that education was going to usher us a life that, what education did for our parents, we thought education was going to do for us. We thought that there'd always be job opportunities. We thought that everything was going to fulfill the promise that we're entitled to. See, Gen Z's, millennials, we feel like we were brought up thinking that we are the born frees. And when you're born free, you think that the suffering ended with your granddad and your father, and now you're here. But now, you have a redesigning of the structure. Do you understand? You have a redesigning of the struggle. You're overeducated, yet underpaid or unemployed. People with magna cum laudes in engineering or selling chickens just to get by. Starving graduates. We know more than our grandfathers and our fathers did when they were twice our age. But we have almost none of the benefits they used to have. And that's our struggle right there. Now think about your mental health when you have to outthink a system. And mental health was never a priority to most of them growing up, because now, when they were growing up, it was never mental health, just work hard and get paid. Broken families, things like that. Now we're in a new generation where people are enlightened to drugs, where people are enlightened to, all forms of debauchery and hedonism, even if you don't indulge in any of that. What does that do to a person's mind? I'll tell you what it does to my mind. It made me work very hard. But the worst part about working hard was futility. Despite having done everything right, despite having handed in the papers, despite you feel almost defeated. But my thought process is all that hard work. You need to understand something, Val. I owned a business, started a business in 2022 while I was going through trauma, while pursuing a music career in the rap game. I became a show promoter, a business owner, a rapper, and an actor. 40 shows, 3 reality shows, 3 films since I got back to Zim. I'm burnt out. For the last 5 years, what I've done in these last few years, people haven't even done in 10 and 15. And I'll tell you, I got burnt out and it caught up with me. It's reflected in my behavior. It's reflected in when I drink. It doesn't take much to take me out because I'm already burnt out. And all of a sudden, even though I haven't been in a scuffle or a fight and I haven't gone to jail and I haven't violated anyone or been inappropriate, still you get unfortunate incidences. And then I'll be thinking, okay, fine. Maybe if I rest for a couple of months and maybe if I take a break and isolate myself and come back and really redeem myself, I'll be good. But then you still find yourself suffering the same way. I realize that in putting hard work and being acceptable, I've compromised. I've been reckless with my health, been reckless with my thought patterns, mismanaging my time, treating my burnout like a flu instead of treating it like the cancer that it is. Treating meditating like hiking when I should be treating meditating like showering. I'm literally trying to gentrify this neighborhood in my mind right now. I'm trying to improve. I'm still in the process. Hell, I'll even have you know right now while I was telling Timba's story, I've had a few people who have come to me and lecture me about what I'm doing and why I'm doing wrong. You see, I'm suffering just like Timba did. Only I have my own version of it. See, he was stuck in his own way with his negative thought patterns taking the best of them. I'm stuck in my own way with this lifestyle of overachieving, overdoing this, overdoing that, and neglecting the process that I need. And now it's affecting me badly, So now that I'm there in my mind, I have decided I am going to be stress-free. Yep, I'm not going to be stressed out. If you're watching this, if you're going to put me under pressure, if you're not paying me, don't put me under pressure. This guy is going to be stress-free for the rest of his life. I've done too much. I've become an overachiever and still wish I was in a better position like many other Zimbabweans like me. But instead of falling and giving up and surrendering, no, I'm gonna be the version. You see, who I wish Timba would have been is who I'm going to be. Do you understand? And I'm not saying that to look down on him, God rest his soul, but fam, he's just as much a victim of this situation as much as I am, as much as you are. And you cannot tell any person that is born of flesh and blood, you know what I mean, how to deal with the reality that is being Zimbabwean. Because being Zimbabwean has got a lot of issues that are not of earthly origin, bro. Like, let's keep it a brick, dude. Like, seriously. All of these things you hear about dark magic and goblins, which we call Chikwambo, Tokoloshi, whatever your nomenclature is about those things, how they've been getting people fast riches, but people have now been sacrificing, and then when they refuse to obey those things, they start, demonically possessing people, people going crazy. And these are real things. And these are real things. So now, who am I? A rapper? I'm supposed to have it all together as a graduate? Sure, if it was 2002, I'd be on my third baby mama right now buying my second compressor. But no, in 2025, I'm still figuring it out. It's coming, but I'm still figuring it out. But look at the war that I went through. And look at where burning the candle at both ends has led me. A lot of people got love for me, but a lot of people are worried about me. And you want to know what? I'm worried about myself, and that's why I'm not letting the stress. Stress has had its way with me. My anxiety and dread, it's had its way with me. I've worked against the grain and pushed, and I achieved, and it's still, I can't still be living stressed out.
Yeah.
So my reality is mine, and I am going to be more joyful, more proactive, and I am going to be focused on me. And I'm doing away with the things that trigger and contribute to my negative thought patterns. One good thing I do not negotiate with negative energy. I do not negotiate from anyone, whether it's a toxic person, a narcissist, a family member. If you're bad for me and you've got no use for me, you gotta go. Or you know what, better yet, I'm leaving. Do you understand? And I will leave, and I will cut you off, and I will retaliate. I will do whatever it takes for me to get my point across and get myself to a better mind state than I already am in. You know why? Because that's my responsibility to myself.
I think brought out you've brought up a very, very good points. I think from a societal perspective, often we idolize the grind. We idolize this pushing and forcing and making things happen. And we often just neglect who we are. We're always doing things. We never take time to just be. Just to be ourselves in our own energy. We're always relating our self-worth to something in the external realm.
Right.
And I think this segues perfectly to a lot of lessons that I learned personally from an amazing plant medicine. Iboga.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Iboga. I had the privilege to be in an Iboga ceremony with my good friend Don here.
Basse.
Basse. With an amazing facilitator. His name's Lewis. And
Mbela.
yes, Mbela. And I learned a lot of things about force. There's a book called Power versus Force.
Yeah.
And I believe that, when you are forcing something to happen, that's when you really, like, you're putting the pressure on, you're liable to explode, right?
You know what's so crazy? It's like if you're powerful, you're a force to be reckoned with. But if you're powerless, you're forcing things against your will. Like,
yeah. So you just I learned a lot from that plant medicine, especially. It's an amazing plant medicine, an amazing healing ceremony that you go through. But you're also going to be facing a lot of darkness while you go into those ceremonies. You're facing a lot of your own darkness and coming to terms with what you've been doing, quote unquote, wrong all your life. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned is not to force. To be in the flow and to really take care of you. to really be with yourself and feel enough into yourself that you know when it's time to work, you know when you can work in ease, and you know when it would be forceful to start working right now. I guess I just wanted to find out more from you. What are the biggest lessons that you've learned from the plant medicine? And I don't know if you had anything to say on the subject of plant medicine as a vehicle for self discovery and for self healing
Well,
and for leading a better life.
I think I'd like to go through the process that I went through. You know, there was the time when I had the Iboga because my ceremony was a 4-day ceremony. So the first 2 days, I did the ceremony with another spiritual healer. Her name was Kay. So when we ingested the medicine, and I'm gonna just walk them through the entire process of Iboga. So basically what happens with an Iboga healing ceremony is, first of all, the shaman, the facilitator, who's a ordained shaman, not qualified, ordained shaman, he will bring you to the house during the daytime. You'll mix and mingle with the people. You'll have something to eat before you go rest. At about 5 p.m., he starts lighting candles and burning sage. So while the candles are being burnt and the sage is being burnt, you're sleeping. And then you wake up, and he wakes you up and you begin the ceremony. He prepares a fire while he's lighting candles and burning sage. So when you wake up and you walk outside, the fire's already set and the chairs are already set. You have a talk about your healing. You have a talk about your internal struggles. Then after that, Iboga is from Gabon, and it is created by the Bwiti tribe. So this Bwiti tribe are African spiritualists. So in their African spiritualism, just like chrism in the Catholic Church is used to anoint, is used for anointment. The same thing we can say for Bwiti oil in this genre of spirituality. They apply the Bwiti oil to your forehead to make sure that no evil demons come through, because when you take Iboga, you're going to another spiritual realm. There are psychedelic drugs, but then there are psychoactive drugs. Iboga is like ayahuasca, but way stronger. It's the same plant medicine, but it's way stronger. So now, with Iboga, once they anointed you on your head, they start having talks around the fire about the things that they are bothering them. They tell you to get a pen and write all of the things that you want out of the medicine. So you take the medicine, and they depending on who is feeding you the medicine, they don't feed you too much at the same time. They do it controlled. We were fed with teaspoons. And the more you take it, the more in a trance you get. And after about...
But you're also like really sober at the same time, right?
That's the thing about
It's
Iboga.
so interesting in that respect.
Iboga, you are sober, but you're drunk. But you're lucid. But you're lost. You're high, but you're calm. And so much is going on. You think you can walk, but your legs will tell you otherwise. Your body will disappoint you, And after a while, they tell you to lie down. And once you lie down, that is when the trance begins. And this trance happens for about 18 hours, 17 hours.
Can be longer at some times. So my first one was 30 hours.
Yeah.
Second one was 36. It was wild. And 16 of those I was vomiting for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I puked for 16 hours, guys. Can you just like imagine that for a second? But also, I wasn't distressed because, I was puking out. I knew what I was puking out. I was puking out traumas. I was puking out societal confines. Just so much. So I was calm throughout the process, despite it being, you know, on to an outside onlooker, quite distressing.
Yeah. And I was also puking, and it's almost like it turns naturally for the physical. Let's step away from the spiritual. When we talk about the physical aspects of Iboga, when you start puking, when you start diarrhea and all of them things,
Luckily, I've never diarrheaed before.
you know, I'm not saying I did. I'm saying like I'm just saying what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like when you get into that realm, let's. Well, I'm just talking about the physical over here. Iboga as a medicine detoxifies your body. It's like a reset. Like it's almost like updating your iOS system. Whatever damage smoking did to your lungs, Iboga is improving that. That's how it ruins your addiction. It literally it takes away the callousness. It takes away it takes away your tolerance for substances. It takes away, it redesigns your body to reject anything that isn't organic to it. Which is why even when we eat at these Iboga healing ceremonies, we eat straight up organic food and drink a lot of water. And I mean a lot of water.
A lot.
And that's not even, I won't even underestimate it for a second. You drink a lot of water.
You needed to wash out that horrible taste.
And when you get out of it, oh, that tastes awful.
It's the worst.
It's like sawdust. Or I
The
don't know.
most bitter sawdust
Yeah,
you've
the
ever
most bitter
eaten
saw.
in your life.
That's why I describe Iboga. That's the most bitter sawdust you'll ever eat.
Coats your mouth.
And after Iboga, I'm just talking about the physical for now. After Iboga, you feel dirty. I'm talking all the toxins. You're like, ugh, I need to shower quick. Cause, woo, man, and you smell bad. And you really smell bad. And you really, really desperately need to take at least 2 showers.
You
And
puke it out, you
you,
sweat it out.
you, what you call it, defecate it out,
Defecate it
yeah,
out.
I'm saying? So, not that I did it again, you know what I'm saying? But like, that's what happens to your body. But what I loved about Iboga, it shows what you do to your body and how it affects your spirit. Because now, once you're getting in touch with your spirit and you're looking at what your body is going through, on the 4th day I did Iboga. That was the first time I ever spoke to a dead person. And it was like speaking to a regular person. It actually happened to be the shaman's cousin. I don't know why his spirit was present there, because my little brother had died in 2023. I thought maybe I would have seen him. See, it's not like a seance, okay? Don't think of it like it's a spirit medium. No, 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 no. However, you are in the spiritual realm. You are put there. But you're not put there desiring your own superficial needs of, I need to find my dead cousin, my dead this. No, 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 no. Whatever spirit comes to you, you have no control over it, but you will speak to them. And because of the safety of the Bwiti tribe, you're going to be in a pretty safe space. And once you've had post-Iboga, when you wake up, you feel weak. You feel like, when you first wake up, you feel weak. You feel like your stomach is aching. You can feel that this thing had the strongest effect on your body.
But you're also somewhat strangely energetic, right?
No, like that's the last part of it now. Now once you've gotten through the weakness, once you've had your breakfast after, a couple of hours after the trance, woo, you get a new boost. You don't even recognize yourself. You don't recognize how you're fast. You're like, whoa, what has happened? You are strong. It's almost like you got 10 years of your life back. You're like, wow. And that's where the detox and the spiritual alignment, you're like, man, I'm ready. What's happening? What's this? What's that? And you know what? Like, you feel like it's a new you. And it really is a new you, provided you stay committed to the new you. And
that's important. It's not a magic pill.
No, it's not. And you can very well go back into the state that made you need the medicine in the first place. Repeating the thought patterns, repeating this, repeating that, trauma and everything, it ruins your drinking, it ruins your substance abuse, it energizes you. I get up at 3 a.m. every morning, 2:30, 3 a.m. Like, I can't even, like, I start my day earlier than most people now because of Iboga, and, but I still found myself in those negative thought processes, and I was still finding myself in them negative thought patterns. I was still finding myself in that, but I had more strength than I did. So, for me, the Iboga wasn't my healing journey. It didn't reveal to me what was wrong with me during the session, but it gave me the strength to go on the journey to reveal what it is. And what I found with Iboga was what we're speaking about today.
Yeah.
Burnout. And that has been my problem. Overworking, amplifying negative thought patterns. Do you understand? I found myself chasing girls and distracting girls. And this year especially, just chasing girls and distracting myself with women. Who I really didn't have no business being emotionally invested in. Sure, having fun, flings, whatever, you name it, but emotionally invested. Then I realized I'm distracting myself. What am I distracting myself? That was also a negativity in my thought pattern. It's like, fam, you're going to work hard, you're going to burn the candle at both ends, and then you're going to distract yourself. And then once you've distracted yourself, that distraction of yourself was your response to anhedonia. Anhedonia is a byproduct of what? Burnout. Which is why I'm here today, to tell you that Iboga has shown me, and it took 2 years after the healing ceremony, but it gave me the strength to persevere through things I wouldn't have ever done with my normal energy. I won more, and I pushed myself more, but it wasn't for my award last year. Iboga wasn't leading me to my award last year. Iboga was leading me to where I am right now. And it told me that you're going to work hard and you're going to achieve everything, but you're going to ruin it all if you're burnt out and you still continue. Mm-hmm. So you need to be kinder to yourself, be kinder with your thoughts, and be more productive. So that's where I'm at. And I'm trying to redesign I'm trying to replace stress with hyper-focus. I'm trying to replace anxiety with hyper-discipline. Because I'm just a hard worker. But do I get distracted? Absolutely. Am I disciplined when I feel like it? I'm disciplined to an extent. You know what I mean? I'm disciplined to an extent. But now if I had hyper-focus and hyper-discipline for a specific amount of time, and I give it my all, once I'm done with that, I don't have time to be stressed out anymore. Even if things are bad, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be depressed. And now stress and anxiety has become default settings in my internal life, like every Zimbabwean. But Zimbabweans put surrender and social expectations and conformity in the mix, and you get the Zimbabwean condition and what it makes you.
Zimbabwean burnout.
There you go. Yeah.
Zim out.
Yeah. Burnout is a load shedding in Zimbabwe.
I I I, I want to just, I guess this is a little bit of pushback on what you just said to me about like working hard and all that. What if we could, just from my study into spirituality and really working with the dynamics of the mind to really try and not improve but streamline or what is the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, I guess streamline would be the to get into the flow. I feel like sometimes we have this dichotomy between work and play, and actually, if we start to look at work and play as the same thing, whereas like play is has an element of work, work has an element of play. If we could imbue work with a playful vibe to it, I think we could take a lot of the pressure off of ourselves when we are working.
Yeah, if you're single, that's how you are because now you're an autonomous being and you're living for yourself. So work and play can work hand in hand. But now when you have a family, your work cannot be your play. Otherwise, you're going to wind up being married to your career instead of being devoted to your wife. And you know what I mean? You got to take those things into consideration. You know what I mean? Because you're going to work hard and play hard. Then you're going to be like, oh, so, your wife will start thinking, oh, so you don't take me as seriously as your work. You don't take our love lives as seriously as your work. These are things that people are not hip to. These are things that people are not necessarily conscious or mindful of. So it's like work and play is really subjective and exclusive to the person and the life that they're living.
Depends on your priorities, I guess, at the end of the day, what's most important to you at particular points in your life.
Because that dichotomy of work and play comes into different facets of our lives. Relationships have a work and play type of factor. The work in relationships, what's the work in relationships? Trying to be a provider, dedication, working on your internal struggles to make you a more, acceptable partner. Your faithfulness and everything like that. And what's the play? Obviously, it's what everybody thinks romance is. It's the love, it's the lust, it's the going out, it's the sex, do you understand? It's all of those things that you enjoy about a relationship and you enjoy about the person, but the work is what maintains the joy between you and the person. And being in love is its own job. So we've got fathers who are suffering from burnout themselves because they're trying to work and play, and they're working and playing in their marriage and working and playing in their workplace. That's why they start taking up golf or, taking up a hobby or doing things like that. And when it stops being enough, when you work so much with your wife, you forget how much fun it is to be with her. Guess what you start doing? You start having affairs, That dichotomy is always misunderstood and abused, and which is why we're living in a society that's really broken. People with broken homes, people who try to normalize cheating. When that dichotomy of work and play doesn't just exist in our professional lives. It only exists in your professional life if you're a single, autonomous being. But if you're working and playing with your family, you're working and playing. Even with your kids, you have a work and play relationship. Kid, you have to teach them something. You have to be an example. That's the work. Then the play is you spoil your kids, you enjoy your kids, you teach them how to be a human being. And understanding that dichotomy and then the multi-dimensions of the human experience is what makes your quality of life as a family man and as a human being. So, yeah.
Yeah, what I'm saying is like, I think as you go deeper into these concepts and as you think and meditate on these concepts, I guess that's also what alchemy is at the end of the day, right?
Precisely.
So you get a different understanding of work and play as you go along and as you meditate on these concepts.
Yeah.
And it becomes a more mature, more balanced outlook on these topics. I think that's definitely something that Iboga really contributed to me finding out. It really taught me how to become the alchemist in my life, right? To take that bad situation and look at it through a different lens, see it with a different perception, and see the lesson behind it rather than the issue. I'm looking for the solution, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
I think we've all got a bit of alchemy in our own lives, because, like, I can say the alchemy in my life, just to add to your point, is this what I'm talking about, is improving my work and play relationship, because now, working and playing that relationship, as much as I have been productive and as much as I have shown results, it's damaged now. And it's damaging me, and it's damaging a lot of people. You've got a lot to show. You've got awards. You're doing shows. You're getting booked. You're doing this. You're doing that. But as much as you're building yourself up, you're also self-destructing until you fix that work and play relationship, which is what I'm on right now.
Okay.
The new me, the world is not ready for the new me. I'm telling you, because I'm going to be working hard and having more fun than anybody. And that's it. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, not to be the best it is. No. I'm just going to be working hard and having more fun and seeing what comes out of that. Okay? I already showed y'all niggas what time it was. Y'all already know Mr. Undefeated. I'm done with that, dude. I'm about to have more fun than everybody else.
That's fantastic news. I think we all need to strive to be able to, work hard, play hard, but in the right quantities, getting that balance just right. So I think that's a lovely place to leave off this podcast, to end this podcast. But before I end this podcast, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, what do you have to say to all the young creatives out there that are just coming up? What are the lessons that or the things that, I guess, one thing that you could leave the young creatives coming up? Just a word of advice, I guess.
The podcast is over. Get back to work. That's it.
There we go. All right, and final thing, what can we expect from Mr. Donne Jovi in the coming months?
I just told you. Having more fun than everyone else. Yeah. And more work. And more art. And I'm going to have more fun this time. So, yeah. But for now, you need to get back to work.
Alright guys, thank you so much for anyone who tuned in live for the first podcast in the Transmission Podcast series arc. I am here signing off with Mr. Donne Jovi, and have a fantastic day. We'll see you on the next episode.
Wow. That was fire. I hope you enjoyed that.
Heck, my dude. That was fun.
That was fun. That was fun. Was the chat there?
It was, but I think it might be hidden. That's what. But you know what? It's fine. Actually, no, it was at the front. I didn't see any chats come up though.
Oh, okay.
But hey, dude,
it's the first episode,
it's
dude.
the first fucking episode.
And you're gonna load it up.
First time we done this live. I recorded the whole thing.